The 2017 Colorado Avalanche were one of the worst teams we've seen throughout the last decade, making headlines for all the wrong reasons. But one of the biggest headlines from that Avs season was the constant rumors of trade talks regarding Matt Duchene. At that point, Duchene had spent close to 9 seasons with the Avalanche with little to no postseason success, and with the team's abysmal performance, he wanted a chance to play for a contender, requesting a change of scenery that ended up becoming much needed for both sides involved. Sakic patiently waited for the right deal to arrive in order to ship him off. And finally, on November 5th, Duchene would finally get dealt in one of the weirdest and craziest ways possible. That night, the Avs were playing against the New York Islanders with Matt Duchene obviously in the game. But midway throughout the first period, when the trade was announced, Duchene would sneak off the ice, immediately leaving the game entirely en route to his new home in Ottawa, creating a scene that's rarely ever been seen before. Cameras captured Duchene walking out with his bags and personal belongings headed straight to his new team, and it caused a huge buzz on social media. The trade in itself sent a ton of future assets to the Avalanche, ones that eventually landed them both Samuel Girard and Bowen Byram, but it also signified numerous things for the Avalanche. The first was that it seemed as if Sakic was now officially handing the reins over to a young Nathan MacKinnon, and the second was that by trading Duchene, the culture of the entire organization was set to change for good, with defenseman Eric Johnson even going on record stating, quote,
"Yeah, I mean, he didn't want to be a Colorado Avalanche anymore, so it's kind of something that was, I'm sure, bothering him, and knowing the fact that he didn't want to play for the team anymore. We all want to play for this team and win in Denver, and he wanted to go somewhere else, and that's his right. But now we have the group in the room that we're gonna all be pulling the same rope in the same direction, and hopefully that's a lot more wins falling up in the playoffs in the future."
Duchene's sour attitude is what maybe drove a handful of players nuts, as just a year after the disastrous season, the same Avalanche team shocked everyone by clinching a playoff spot without Matt Duchene. Funny enough, the Senators, Duchene's team that he was supposed to contend with, completely began to fall off a cliff, causing Matt to, yet again, miss out on postseason play, eventually getting dealt away to Columbus. Duchene's exit was the first time a player was traded mid-game in 5 years up to that point, as back in 2012, Canadiens forward Mike Camilleri would also get traded away mid-game, but perhaps due to his own actions. In a game against the Boston Bruins in 2012, after trailing 1-0, Camilleri would be told to go back to the team hotel and await for instructions after getting pulled from the game. Prior to his time in Montreal, Camilleri was a member of the Flames, and ironically, the mid-game trade would send Mike right back to Calgary.
Camilleri has had a very eventful last 24 hours. The team was not happy with him, but they still dressed him tonight against the Boston Bruins before taking him out and announcing that they had traded the forward to the Calgary Flames.
Many were confused as to why this deal went down, especially during the middle of the game, but maybe it had to do with what Camilleri told the Habs media that did him in. After losing to the St. Louis Blues earlier that season, Camilleri would tell reporters, quote, "I can't expect that we will display a losing attitude as we're doing this year. We prepare for our games like losers, we play like losers, so it's no wonder why we lose." He would continue by stating, "When you display a losing attitude like we do now, you lose more often than you win." So Camilleri essentially guaranteed his way out by making those remarks, also creating a possibility as to why his mid-game trade could make a bit more sense. In his return to Calgary, he would produce 19 points, and would only last 2 more seasons with the Flames before signing with the New Jersey Devils in 2014. When Dion Phaneuf got traded to the LA Kings, it seemed like a pure cap move, and since the pieces involved weren't exactly considered big names, many just saw it and looked right past it. But even to my surprise, that trade happened during the middle of a game between the Ottawa Senators and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Apparently, during the second period, Phaneuf stopped receiving ice time, and word started to leak that perhaps he got traded. It also didn't help that former teammate Phil Kessel would flat out tell Penn's TV analyst Bob Erie that Phaneuf was on his way to LA. The trade sent Phaneuf and Nate Thompson to the Kings for Marian Gaborik and Nick Shore, and while Gaborik would sit on LTIR, Phaneuf would play in 93 games with the Kings before eventually getting bought out. Before we end the video, I also wanted to mention some NHL players who got traded moments before a game, with Leafs defenseman John Michael Liles being the first player to come to mind, as his exit was extremely bizarre and kind of sad from a player's perspective. The Maple Leafs were set to face off against the Detroit Red Wings during the 2014 Winter Classic, which is always an exciting moment for every player involved. Well, Liles was set to play the game and was even taking part in warm-ups. That is, until he received word that he got traded to Carolina, thus forcing Liles to leave the ice and head off to Raleigh, missing what would be his only opportunity to play in a Winter Classic. Finally, Tampa Bay would trade away forward Dominic Moore back in 2012, ironically, also during warm-ups, for a 2012 second-round pick. But what I found absolutely hilarious was that the Lightning were set to face off against the San Jose Sharks that night, and the team they traded Moore to was none other than the San Jose Sharks. Unfortunately, he couldn't just change jerseys and play in the same game, but not only did he get traded during a game, but he got dealt to the team he was set to face off against. As we've seen in today's video, it's very rare that a player gets traded away during the middle of a game, but when they do, it always ends up becoming memorable, as they can cause an absolutely crazy sequence of events and can even cause Phil Kessel to become a reliable insider.
It's pretty neat. I don't know if I've ever been to a place like this.